Hey everybody, welcome back. What we're going to be going over today is an overview of Firebase. We're going to check out their console and we'll end with a short little demo of hosting a static, basic, boring website up on Firebase, but it is another way that we can, host some of our various things. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, one thing which you are going to notice is that get on the right page here. So Firebase and Google Cloud have a kind of a partnership type of relationship here where we can use Google Cloud's technologies in Firebase. We can use Firebase's technologies in Google Cloud, but they're at least currently two separate entities. And it might be a little bit confusing because you can access projects in Firebase, you can access the console in Firebase, same in Google Cloud Console. They have their own console there, they have their own projects. If you look under the hood, you can see projects kind of cross over between them. Firebase could make use of, say, the Vision API, the Cloud Functions, um, SDK. Basically, there's some interoperability that we can get here. Now, I will leave the nitty-gritty particulars of what Firebase is to the post that accompanies this. But effectively, Firebase is like a full stack type of a situation for building and deploying apps. There is going to be a lot of things that we are not going to really go into with Firebase. I'm just going to show you the highlights. And if it is something that you are interested in, you can always kind of dig deeper into it. Right? We can do continuous deployment with GitHub. We can do versioning. We can do analytics. We can do advertisements, all kinds of, your basic things that you want a web app or a mobile app or even a Unity app to have. So I went ahead and I clicked the console, and yep, that's from something else. And we see that it looks a little bit different than our usual cloud console, right? It's very kind of engaging and friendly looking. Basically, it's kind of intended to be a nice, lightweight way to get you up and building apps that you want, ideally in a cross-platform based environment. So just to kind of dig right into it here, let's say we want to add a project. Now, I can create a new project in Firebase, or I can use an existing project out of Google Cloud. So let's go ahead and call this Firebase Demo. And I see that Google Analytics can be built right into it, right? I can get predictions. I can get reports. I can do A/B testing. And kind of that popular thing where segment one of your user base gets version A of the app. Group A gets version one, group B gets version two, and run analytics on those versions to see who is using it in which way, in which manner. I'm going to skip analytics for this because it's just like an extra click, and we're not going to do anything with it anyway. But again, you get this very friendly kind of, how do I want to put this, non-professional looking, that's kind of a not a nice thing to say, I suppose. It's intended towards a more casual user, I would say, in a way. But people use Firebase for all kinds of industrial strength applications. So they're just going for a cutesy corporate cartoon kind of a look, I suppose. So here we are now in a project for Firebase, and you can see there's a lot of things going on here. I could add Firebase to iOS, to Android, to a web app, or even to Unity, and I'm sure this list will expand as the days go on. As a bit of an aside for Firebase, it started out as a separate product, and again, I'll let you dig through the blog post on that, but it kind of got folded into this Google Cloud environment. And if you are asking me to predict the future, my guess is eventually this gets rolled into Google Cloud proper, but that's just my anticipation, I suppose. It's probably going to look different in 3 months from now. So that's just how these things kind of go. But we have a nice little starter page here, right? And what we're going to be doing, oops, I clicked the wrong thing in the wrong place. My apologies. Here we go. Okay. Sorry, stuff on my other screen that I need up to have talking points about. let's say that we want to build an app, and that's what we're going to do at the end of this little overview here. If I want to add on kind of very common activities to an app, it's very, very easy to do in Firebase. And on here on the left, you see these high level build type of activities. So if I want to add authentication, if I want to add some kind of a database, cloud storage, hosting, which is what we'll be doing, I can interact with cloud functions. I can do machine learning. And there's even extensions that we can add on too. Maybe you want to work with BigQuery. Maybe you want to do URL shortening. We could do performance monitoring, analytics, look at crashes. Basically, there's lots of kind of pre-baked, nice, easy to use things here that we can very easily spin up a project. So let's take a look at authentication. I show this off in, I think, both of the demo videos, at least in the Cloud Functions and Firebase one, we actually go through and set it up. But if I want to add authentication, we have to click this Get Started link. And here we see all of the different options for authentication. If I want to add Google authentication, I basically click Edit, Enable, pick the project account email that I want to use, and I could configure this to make it look a little bit nicer. Save. I now have authentication in my app. So basically, I have an OAuth based login screen that's going to pop up where if you go to my application and there you see the little sign in with Google link, you'd click that and you get a pop-up saying this website is asking you to sign in with your Google credentials. These are the access rights the account has, or sorry, the web app has with your account. And then what's going to happen is that you are going to see a list of users who are registered for your projects. And it can be very, very easy to get this up and running. If any of you have ever written a login screen before, collect the username, password, sign up, birth dates, what's your home page, what's your email address, validate everything, go through and make sure that that's actually a real person. I did this in 2-3 clicks and it's done. And it's using the power of, well, it's really OAuth, so it's another authentication entity, but we have all these different ways to handle it. We could use Microsoft credentials. We could log in with GitHub. Log in with Google Play Games if you're making a game-based app, or just make them use a username and password, right? It's very, very trivial, which as somebody who has done web development in the past, I see this kind of thing and wish it had existed when I was freelancing. So we have that. We also have the Firestore Database, which I don't think is going to really pop up right now because I haven't done anything yet. But what you're going to end up with, so let's create it. And I'm just going to enable this database here. It's basically a document-based database. So you're going to get a database that looks like a bunch of JSON. You will have keys, which basically point to various, data sets. Depending on how you structure your app, you can structure it however you want, right? This is effectively a NoSQL database. But again, it's a one-click type of thing. You don't have to go and set up MongoDB. You don't have to go up and set up Couch. You don't have to, set up Neo4j or Bigtable or anything like that. Here, I could just say this is user posts. So I would basically have a schema that I can define here. So let's say auto ID, field, ID, add field, username, add field, post. And I'm just leaving this all as default. But here's my user posts. Here is what effectively is a a JSON document here. So simple document-based database where if I understand the underpinnings of how to connect to it, you'd write like a Node.js or a Python app or something like that, import the Firebase libraries and hook into this thing. I just took all the heavy lifting of setting up the database and I offloaded it to Firebase. And we also, and with that, we also get real-time databases, so we can do real-time based things a little bit deeper. We have storage possibilities where basically it just goes into cloud storage buckets. So you see this gs://, that's your default bucket. Work with that bucket like you would any other cloud storage bucket. Hosting, I will do a little demo here in a moment. We also have cloud functions, which if we remember from way back when, these are serverless functions. Just pass it some data, have it be transformed, and there you go. What we used it for in one of the labs, the one with cloud functions, we were basically using cloud functions to monitor a storage bucket to see if an image has adult-oriented themes like sexual or violent graphics. And we uploaded a zombie picture. Also machine learning possibilities. So, if we want to work with various machine learning tasks, I would definitely say this is something worth looking into. Firebase Ml is basically, it's going to be using TensorFlow Lite. So you actually see that down here. You can use ready-to-use models. So we see some of the possibilities here. So text recognition, image labeling, barcode scanning, kind of common tasks. Think of it as similar to those APIs in the machine learning module where it's already pre-baked for you. You just have to import it, pass it data, and the pre-existing model will help you out there, assuming you're okay leaning on those models. And then there's more things that we can get into as well. I don't want this video to go too long because I think, Firebase is something that is definitely worth playing with. And I should mention too, it sounds too good to be true for a lot of these things, and I'm saying that as a former web developer and I suppose web development teacher. But you do obviously pay for this. It is a cloud-based service. I think as of today, you get 10 gigs of free ingress and egress, and then you start paying for it. So I would recommend checking out the billing options for this, like if you wanted to use it for personal use or personal projects or something like that. Your cloud credits will apply just fine here. So for in-class things, you don't have to worry about that. But definitely check it out. So what we're going to do demo-wise is let's set up a Hello World website, which seems like kind of a great, simplistic, easy way to get going, right? So I'm going to now shift you over here, pop my terminal over, and I'm going to run you through setting up a Firebase project. So we have our project live, right? And then I clicked setup hosting. So basically you have to install the Firebase tools. I've done that. And this is where things start changing. So the way this works is that you set up a server on your local machine. So you set up your code, you set up everything in your local terminal. Can you do this in a compute engine virtual machine? Yes, you can, but it becomes painful when you try to validate your login because it wants you to do that Google OAuth, click this link to login type of thing. We'll see that. If you're doing it in the VM through SSH, it's not going to work very easy. I have gotten it to work before, and I think it involved patching through an X server so that I could access a desktop remotely so that I could use a browser. Did not work with Lynx very well, which is a terminal-based browser if you're familiar with that. But I have Firebase installed locally. I have Node.js and NPM. That's what this is all based around. So I'm going to do Firebase Login, and it's going to say that I'm already logged in. So I think this is now the third time I've done this because I keep forgetting to log out. So log in. It's going to ask me, you want to collect usage? Sure, why not? Then it's going to say, visit this URL, or it's going to try to pop open a browser. And you pick your account that you want to reference or to work with Firebase. See how to configure, delete Google Cloud Platform data, view and admin Firebase, view Cloud Platform projects. Yes, I trust it because I'm working with this locally. What that has done is it has initialized and logged in my local terminal. Sorry, my local machine, because I think that actually persists across terminals. So I'm logged in. I can now work with Firebase from my computer. So now I created a folder here. I'm going to do Firebase Inits. And what this is going to do is it will initialize the project for me. Let me shift this over so we can see their pretty graphic. There we go. We get some options here. So you want to use it for a database, Firestore, functions. We want hosting. So I'm going to hit space. I love their little GUI here, by the way. And then I'm going to hit enter. We're going to use an existing project, and we see our projects that we have created so far. So this is Firebase-demo. Just dash demo? Yes, just dash demo. Okay. I've got some other projects here too. All right. It's going to ask you what you want as your public directory. Basically, anything you put in the public directory is what is getting deployed. So I'm going to leave that as is. No, I don't want a single page app. I'm old school. I like multiple links. We are not doing continuous deployment with GitHub. It created a 404 page and an index.html page and a public directory and a JSON file for logging into Firebase and working with Firebase. So if we check out this public folder, there are those files. So I could say go ahead and vim public index, and we see a bunch of scripts in here. Basically, delete everything you don't need. Like we are not using auth, we're not using database, Firestore functions, any of this stuff we are not going to be using for this application. So let's go ahead and get rid of them all. And I mean, you could include them, but we're not using them. And I'm going to leave the page as default. So let's say big H1, hey there, CIS680. Hope you are doing well, exclamation point. And we'll call that good. So we now have a, oops, I want it to be in my hosting setup so that you can follow along at home. So we initialized, now we want to deploy. Okay, everything in our public folder will be deployed, right? So let's go ahead. And again, we are in the root of our project here because we need access to this firebase.json file. Firebase Deploy. And depending on how crazy this is, it might take a while to spin up, might take seconds. It just depends on what you have going on. Like we're not using machine learning, we're not using cloud functions, we are just deploying a basic site. So we get a link to our console and a link to our page. Let's go ahead and maximize this now. And you see it's at .web.app. Look at that. Hey there, 680, hope you're doing well. Simple website. Honestly, if I wasn't explaining everything as I went, this would probably take less time than it would take to install the NPM libraries that we needed. And again, some of the other tutorials that I'm going to be rolling with here are going to do some more detailed things, so definitely check those out. But that is kind of a basic overview of Firebase. If you're an app developer, it is a wonderful tool to get you up and running. So hope that was useful for you all. See you all next time. Bye, everybody.